bonjour, bon après-midi, en fonction de votre lieu de participation. Eh bien,
you every Thursday, and that is the program for media across the world regarding the situation of COVID-19 on the African continent. And this program is brought to you every week by the Africa CDC, and the director of that institution is always available to be able to speak to us, give us updates, as well as take some of your questions. My name is Wayne Musabayana. I'm head of communication at the African Union Commission. And today, Dr. John, as usual, will give us the epidemiological update. He'll also give us other updates on how the Africa CDC is responding to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as updates on the rollout of vaccines across the African continent. Then after that, he will go into the question and answer section. But before we get to that, let me remind you of that WhatsApp number that you can use to send your questions in to us. It is +251 94 550 2310. I'll repeat that number. It is +251 94 550 2310. We can also take your questions live, as well as read them out if you put them on the question and answer section. All right, let me now hand you over to Dr. John Nkengasong, the director of the Africa CDC. Good morning, Dr. John. Please go ahead. Thank you very much, John. That was Dr. John Nkengasong, the Africa CDC Director. Now, let me just remind you of the numbers again. We are available on plus 251 94 550 2310, and that's on WhatsApp. But you can also use the Zoom platform, either coming through live or utilizing the question and answer section. I'm just scanning for questions that are coming through from colleagues. Perhaps let's start with a question around what is happening with the patents. I know, Dr. John, that you've discussed this in the past, but the patents that would enable Africa to manufacture vaccines without the threat of legal repercussions, how far are we with that? Right, okay. I'm still just waiting for colleagues to indicate that they want to ask questions. Colleagues, if you have any questions that you want to put through to Dr. John, this is your opportunity to do that. Perhaps while we wait for you to just send them through, let me pose another question. In terms of how the world is likely to respond to future pandemics, how do you think if we would be able to respond more effectively, perhaps, than what happened this time around? All right. Thank you very much, John. Now we have a question that has come through from Kerry Cullinan, and Kerry is with Health Policy Watch. The question is, have you had any response from Gavi or COVAX to your appeal to place orders with Aspen? All right, thank you. Janice Rose. Janice doesn't write the news agency that she's working for. Janice, if you can hear us, please indicate your news organization. But let's go into what she says. Does Africa CDC have any data on the prevalence of the BA4 and BA5 sublineages of Omicron that are currently dominant in Southern Africa? Are these likely to be the ones driving the high positivity rate across the continent? Do you see these as also driving the next wave? And finally, do you think there may be some new variant that has not yet been discovered? All right, thank you. Let's say hello to Sarah Jerving, who is with Devex, and she's coming through on WhatsApp. She says, do you have any more details on the Moderna mRNA facility that it plans to build in Kenya? All right. It's good morning to Alexander Winning, and I believe Alexander is with Reuters. Yes, indeed, she is. Is there any update on progress in Africa securing COVID-19 treatment pills, including the ones from Pfizer or Merck? She also says, are you still in talks with those two companies? And do you think it makes sense to produce those pills, or should the focus remain on vaccination at this stage of the pandemic? Thank you, John. Paul Adepoju writes, is there any update regarding the situation at Aspen? I think you've touched on this a little bit. He goes on to say, what is the outlook and timeline for the Partnerships for African Vaccine Manufacturing Initiative? And with African countries heavily reliant on UNICEF and Gavi for their vaccines, does local vaccine manufacturing in Africa have a chance without these initiatives that already have agreements and contracts with foreign vaccine manufacturers and suppliers? In other words, he says, do you see the existing structure being a threat to the African vaccine manufacturing vision? All right, thank you very much, John. I just want to advise colleagues again of our WhatsApp number, which is plus 251 94 2310. We come back to Kerry Cullinan, who is with Health Policy Watch. Some people think that Africa has been spared from COVID-19, but a recent Zambian study found that almost 1/3 of deceased in a Lusaka mortuary were COVID-19 positive. And during the worst COVID-19 waves, this went up to 90%. Most of these people died at home and were never tested. How is Africa CDC assisting African countries to improve their excess mortality surveillance so that we can have more accurate statistics on the impact of future pandemics? All right, thank you, John. Just to acknowledge that Janice has written back to confirm that it is Janice Q from Bloomberg. I had seen Janice Rose on the question, but it's actually our usual colleague, Janice Q from Bloomberg. Thank you very much, Janice. Now I see that Paul Adepoju has a hand up, and Paul, I suppose you want to make some follow-ups to your previous questions. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. John. Thanks for taking my question. So I want to raise something that seems to be central to these issues that you believe African countries need to do, the actions that they need to do, which is this issue of funding. Irrespective of what African countries are trying to do, it seems to be like the person that provides the funds is going to be the one that determines where the vaccines will be procured from and what kinds of drugs, what kind of testing kits would be produced. However, a projection by the World Bank showed that many low middle income countries, especially in Africa, may not have increase in their GDP over the next couple of years, which means expecting these countries to spend more on health, to provide more out-of-pocket funding for these initiatives may not be the best approach. So what is Africa's CDC's recommendations for African countries such that they are able to finance actions that need to be taken to secure their public health and for us to be able to achieve this public health order. We are looking at the reality of the impact of COVID-19 on Africa's economies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Sarah Jerving has her hand up. Sarah, please go ahead with your follow-up.
Thank you so much. Do you have any updates on the candidates that are under consideration for Africa CDC's leadership if you leave to head PEPFAR? Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better? Okay, thank you. Do you have any updates on the candidates that are under consideration for Africa CDC's leadership if you leave to head PEPFAR? Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. And I just want to add that, Sarah, you can also see that advert on the websites of the African Union and of the Africa CDC. So if you want to keep track on that, you can check those two websites. All right, we don't have. All right, thank you very much. I have just been scanning all our platforms and we don't have any more questions that are coming in. So please, Dr. John, give us your summary of the main highlights from the program today. Thank you very much, John. And let me thank colleagues for having joined us, for always joining us for this program. And we will be back with you next week on Thursday. Let me also just thank my colleagues who are behind the scenes from the African Union and the Africa CDC. And a great big thank you to Dr. John for the time that he spends informing us about the COVID-19 pandemic across the African continent. So that's it for this week. Let's meet again next week on Thursday at the same time, and that is 12 noon East African time. Bye-bye for now.